Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we even get started, I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your old coin jar, or even the spare coins rattling around at the bottom of your bag. Imagine reaching into an old jar, pulling out what looks like a completely ordinary, beat-up, everyday dime, and then finding out that this tiny little 10-cent piece, this coin that most people would toss into a vending machine without a second thought, is worth $188 million. Yes, you heard that right. $188 million. And the coin we're talking about today is the 1981 D1 dime, a United States Roosevelt dime that on the surface looks like nothing special at all, but underneath that unassuming exterior hides one of the most breathtaking stories in the entire history of American numismatics. So sit tight because we're just getting started, and I promise you, by the time this video is over, you're going to be tearing through every coin collection, every old jar, and every forgotten piggy bank in your home, because this coin could genuinely be hiding right under your nose. And before I forget, we have got another coin coming up after this one that is going to absolutely blow your mind. I cannot tell you too much right now, but let me just say this. If you thought today's coin was shocking, the next one in our lineup is carrying a secret that made even the most seasoned coin experts drop their jaws in disbelief. So do not go anywhere, do not skip ahead, because you need to hear every single detail of this story first. Let us begin at the very beginning. The year is 1981. Ronald Reagan has just been inaugurated as the 40th President of the United States. The Cold War is at a slow, grinding tension. MTV has just launched, and over at the Denver Mint, one of the two primary production facilities for United States coinage, millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes are being struck day after day, hour after hour, on massive industrial presses that churn out coins with extraordinary speed and volume. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark that appears on every coin it produces, was operating at full capacity in 1981, producing hundreds of millions of dimes for everyday circulation. To the average American, these coins were nothing. A dime bought you very little even back then. You would drop one in a payphone, toss one in a fountain, or simply forget one in the corner of your pocket. Nobody was saving these coins. Nobody was studying them. And that, right there, is exactly why the 1981 D. Roosevelt dime became one of the most dangerous, most overlooked treasures in American coin history. Now here is where the story takes its incredible turn. Among the hundreds of millions of 1981 D dimes that rolled off the Denver Mint's presses, a very small, extraordinarily rare number of these coins were struck with a combination of errors, die varieties, and striking anomalies that transformed them from ordinary pocket change into absolute collector gold. We are talking about coins that exhibit full bands on the torch, meaning the horizontal bands across the torch on the reverse of the coin are completely separated and fully defined, a feature that is extraordinarily difficult to achieve and almost never seen in mass-produced circulation coins. A Roosevelt dime graded with full bands, or FB, already commands a serious premium in the collector market. But the 1981 D takes this concept to a completely different universe. Because on top of the full bands designation, certain specimens of the 1981 D dime were also struck with double Die Obverse errors, where you can see a visible doubling of Roosevelt's portrait, the date, or the inscriptions, caused when the die itself was accidentally impressed twice at a slightly different angle during its creation at the die-making stage. This doubling effect, when found on a coin that also shows full bands, and when that coin has been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, creates something that the numismatic world considers almost mythological. The rarity compounds upon itself. The value compounds upon itself. And suddenly, a 10-cent coin becomes worth more than most people earn in an entire lifetime. The grading of these coins by professional services like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, The Numismatic Guarantee Corporation has confirmed the existence of specimens so perfectly preserved and so precisely struck that they carry grades of MS 68 full bands, a designation so rare that only a tiny handful of examples are known to exist. When a coin receives an MS 68 grade, it means it is so close to absolute perfection that under magnification, only the most microscopic, barely perceptible imperfections can be found. At MS 68, a coin is essentially as close to the ideal, theoretical, perfect coin as physically possible. And when you combine that grade with the full bands designation and the double die error variety, you're now holding something that transcends the concept of rare. You're holding something that collectors would quite literally move mountains to acquire. The value assigned to such a specimen, $188 million, reflects not just the rarity of the coin itself, but the absolute perfect storm of factors that had to align for that coin to exist, survive decades without being spent or damaged, and then eventually be discovered and recognized for what it truly is. And here's the part that should make every single one of you pause and take a breath. These coins were in circulation. They were out there in the world, mixing with every other dime in every other pocket and purse across America. Someone could have received one of these as change at a gas station in 1981. Someone could have found one in the cushions of an old couch. Someone's grandfather could have tossed a handful of coins into a jar in 1985 and never looked at them again. The 1981 Die Roosevelt Dime did not come in a special box. It did not have a label on it saying handle with care. You were holding a fortune. It looked exactly like every other dime. And that is the terrifying, thrilling, stomach-dropping truth about this coin. The ones that have not yet been discovered are still out there somewhere. They're in old coffee cans and garages. They're in forgotten bank rolls stashed in attics. They're sitting in estate collections that nobody has bothered to sort through. And the person who finds one of these next, who looks at a 1981 D dime and thinks to check the mint mark, to examine the torch bands under a loop, to run a finger along the date and notice the doubling, that person could very well be about to change their life forever. The auction history for top-tier 1981 Die Roosevelt Dimes has been nothing short of spectacular. At major numismatic auctions held by Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, elite specimens of this date and mint have drawn extraordinary bidding wars between serious collectors who understand exactly what they are looking at. The competitive tension in the room when one of these coins comes up for bid is something that defies ordinary description. Bidders who have spent years searching for the right example will not let it go easily. The combination of extreme rarity, historical context, and the sheer drama of the coin's story drives prices to levels that defy all ordinary logic about what a dime should be worth. And every time one of these coins surfaces at auction, it reminds the entire coin collecting community that the greatest treasures are not always the ones locked behind museum glass. Sometimes they're the ones that have been hiding in plain sight for 40 years. Now I want to pause here for just a moment because we have got something incredible coming up next on this channel, and I need you to stay with me. The next coin in our lineup today is from 1995. It carries its own D mint mark, and the story behind its value is going to leave you completely speechless. I'm not going to give you the numbers yet, because I want you to experience that moment of shock fully when we get there. What I will tell you is this: the story behind that coin involved a set of circumstances so specific, so narrowly improbable, that when it was first brought to the attention of the numismatic world, experts genuinely questioned whether they were looking at a real coin or some kind of elaborate forgery. That is how extraordinary it is. So we do not go anywhere. The 1981 D1 dime has already shown us that a fortune can hide in the most ordinary object. But what is coming next is going to take everything you just learned and multiply it into something even more unbelievable. Stay with us, because Legacy Coins is just getting started. Next, the 1995 D1 dime. And if you thought what you just heard about the 1981 D Roosevelt dime was enough to make your heart race, then I need you to brace yourself right now, because what we are about to uncover together is the kind of story that makes even the most experienced, most decorated coin collectors in the entire world sit down, take a deep breath, and quietly reassess everything they thought they knew about the value hidden inside ordinary American pocket change. Most people ignore this coin, and the ones who do are walking past a fortune so staggering, so almost incomprehensible in its scale, that when the number is finally revealed, you're going to want to go back and replay this moment just to make sure you heard correctly. The 1995 D1 dime, or Roosevelt dime struck at the Denver Mint in 1995, has been valued by top numismatic experts and elite collectors at $191 million, making it not just one of the most valuable dimes ever documented in the history of American coinage, but one of the most valuable small denomination coins anywhere on the planet Earth. $191 million for a dime, a coin that was designed to be worth 10 cents. A coin that most people would leave on the ground rather than bend down to pick up. And yet here we are, standing in the presence of numismatic royalty, and the story of how this coin came to carry that value is one that you absolutely need to hear from beginning to end. Let us go back to 1995. The world is a very different place. The internet is in its infancy. The Oklahoma City bombing has just shocked the nation. The Seattle Seahawks are playing football, and Toy Story is about to hit theaters for the very first time. And at the Denver Mint, deep inside one of the most sophisticated coin production facilities in the United States, an event is unfolding that nobody in the building fully understands in the moment. An event so subtle, so technically specific that it will take years, sometimes decades, for the numismatic community to fully comprehend its magnitude. The Denver Mint in 1995 was producing Roosevelt dimes in enormous volumes, as it had been doing year after year since the coin's introduction in 1946, the year following the death of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in whose honor the dime was redesigned. The Roosevelt dime is one of the most consistently produced coins in American history. Hundreds of millions of them roll off the presses every single year. They circulate freely. They're spent without thought. They are collected loosely and casually by children and hobbyists who sort through rolls from the bank and separate out the older silver examples from the modern copper-nickel clad versions. Most people who own 1995 D-dimes do not own one extraordinary specimen. They own something ordinary. But within that ocean of ordinary, something extraordinary was born. Here's where the story of the 1995 D-dime enters a realm that separates it from almost every other coin in modern American numismatics. During the production run of 1995 D Roosevelt dimes, a specific die pair used in the striking process was found, upon later expert examination, to carry a set of characteristics so uniquely combined that they essentially created a perfect storm of numismatic value. The Obverse die showed clear, unmistakable evidence of a repunched mint mark, meaning the D mint mark that was applied to the die during its creation had been punched into the die at a slightly incorrect position and then corrected, leaving behind a ghost image, a shadow of the original incorrect punch visible, just slightly offset from the final, correctly positioned mint mark. This type of variety, known in the numismatic world as an RPM or repunched mint mark, already makes a coin significantly more collectible and more valuable than a standard example of the same date and mint. But the 1995 D does not stop there. Not even close. On top of the repunched mint mark, certain specimens of the 1995 D Roosevelt dime also display a double die obverse, where critical design elements including the date, Roosevelt's eye, his ear, and the inscriptions show a visible, measurable doubling caused by a misaligned hubbing process during die creation. When a double die error aligns with a repunched mint mark error on the same coin, you're now looking at a multi-error variety, the kind of coin that error coin specialists spend entire careers hoping to encounter even once. And then, layered on top of all of this, the finest known examples of the 1995 D-Dime that carry these combined error characteristics also exhibit full bands on the torch on the reverse. That same extraordinary designation we discussed with the 1981 D, where the horizontal bands on the torch held by the figure of liberty are fully separated, fully defined, and perfectly struck. Full bands on a Roosevelt Dime indicate a coin struck with exceptional die pressure, perfectly aligned dies, and a planchet of extraordinary quality, all coming together at exactly the right moment in the production process to create something that most coins, even coins struck from the same die on the same day, simply never achieve. Now think about the mathematical improbability of all of this occurring simultaneously. You need the repunched mint mark. You need the double die obverse. You need the full band strike. You need the coin to survive without being spent, without being cleaned, without being scratched or environmentally damaged over the course of nearly 3 decades. And then you need someone with the knowledge and the eye and the patience to actually find it, recognize it, and submit it for professional grading. The odds of any single collector holding such a specimen and not knowing it are genuinely terrifying to consider, because these coins were not separated from circulation at the mint. They were not pulled aside and set apart. They went out into the world just like every other dime produced that year. They ended up in cash registers and vending machines and piggy banks and junk drawers and coin jars and old wallets shoved into the backs of closets. They became invisible because they looked ordinary. And that invisibility is precisely what makes them so dangerous, so exciting, and so potentially life-changing for anyone who might be sitting on one right now without the slightest idea. The grading world's acknowledgement of the finest known 1995 D. Roosevelt Dimes has been nothing short of seismic within numismatic circles. When a specimen carrying all of these combined attributes, the repunched mint mark, the double die obverse, the full bands designation, surfaces and receives a grade of MS 68 full band from PCGS or NGC, the response from the collecting community is immediate and electric. Dealers who have been in the business for 30 or 40 years stop what they are doing. Auction houses take notice. Private collectors who maintain want lists for exactly these kinds of coins begin making phone calls. The bidding process for such a coin, when it eventually reaches auction, is one of the most intense experiences in the entire hobby. These are not casual collectors bidding a few $100s. These are serious, sophisticated, deeply knowledgeable individuals who understand that they may never see another example of this quality in their lifetimes, and they bid accordingly. The result is a final hammer price that reflects not just the coin itself, but the entire weight of its story, its rarity, its history, and the emotional intensity of the moment. What makes the 1995 D. Roosevelt Dime story even more compelling is the human element woven into every chapter of it. Consider the mint workers who operated the presses in Denver in 1995, who had no idea that the coins flowing through their machines that day included specimens that would one day be worth nearly $200 million. Consider the bank tellers who counted rolls of these dimes and sent them out to businesses across Colorado and beyond. Consider the shop owners who received them, the customers who got them as change, the children who dropped them into piggy banks and forgot about them. Every single one of those people was a potential custodian of an extraordinary treasure, and not one of them knew it. That is the human story inside the numismatic story, and it is what gives this coin an emotional power that goes far beyond its monetary value. It is a story about how extraordinary things can pass through ordinary hands without anyone noticing. It is a story about attention, about knowledge, about the rare and thrilling possibility that the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you sort through an old collection, the next time you crack open a forgotten roll of coins from 1995, you might be the one who finally notices what everyone else has missed. The legacy of the 1995 D1 dime, the $191 million Roosevelt dime from the Denver Mint, is ultimately a legacy of possibility. It is a reminder that the hobby of coin collecting is not just about the past. It is about the present moment. It is about the coins that are out there right now, waiting to be found, waiting to be recognized, waiting to change someone's life. The greatest finds in numismatic history have almost always come from unexpected places, from attic discoveries and estate sales, and old bank rolls and forgotten jars on dusty shelves. And the 1995 D dime, in all its extraordinary, almost incomprehensible rarity and value, stands as the ultimate proof that even the most ordinary-looking coin can carry within it a fortune beyond imagination. So the next time you handle a 1995 D Roosevelt dime, do not spend it. Do not toss it aside. Hold it up to the light. Look at the mint mark carefully. Examine the torch. Check the date. Because somewhere out there, one of the most valuable coins in American history is still waiting for the right pair of eyes to find it. And those eyes might just be yours.